Alright, ladies and gentlemen, and now we return with the Wood Elf vs Warriors of Chaos Showdown. It's going to be Drika taking it to Prince Sigvald, or at least trying to, and as far as the build goes, it's going to be double Bladesinger. Now, Bladesingers against Warriors of Chaos can be decent. They have a little bit of good dual purpose. So, of course, they have amazing armor piercing on their normal palette here, so if your opponent has Chaos Warriors, Mirror Guard, they can dominate them pretty heavily in combat. You can also use their activated ability here, which is the Whirling Death, to make them much more efficient against low armor, so things like Marauders, but even still, they kill the Marauders very quickly in Forsaken, but I don't always find it to be a super cost-effective trade. They only have 15 armor, and they're pretty damn squishy, all jokes aside here. So you got to be careful with them, but if you use them as a little bit of a scalpel, taking advantage of their speed, which is 46, rear charging unit that's fighting something else, or, taking a fight against Chaos Warriors, which of course they trade very efficiently against, I think they could be okay. So we do have two Bladesingers, a couple units of Glade Riders. Of course, Chaos is going to be having Horsemen. And I figured Horsemen in this matchup would be very, very nasty against my Bladesingers, right? They're not shielded. They have a little bit of physical resist, but normally like Marauder Horsemen or Chariots or things like that would be really, really disruptive against them. As such, got two Glade Riders as well as some Wild Riders here. Marauders, the meta, in my experience, that Chaos has against Wood Elves is an all-out rush, because most Wood Elf players will go pretty heavily with the triple Waywatcher style of play and just kind of, kite and fight. So basically I was like trying to get things that could counter that existing meta. So Marauder spam, Chariots, sometimes people will bring up to 6 Chaos Warhounds. So that's what Glade Riders and Wild Riders are here to do. That's going to be it. In the back, we have the War Dancers, a couple Dryads in the front, Drika with no spells, just her Dryad Summon and combat abilities there, and a Caster of Life. Now in the bushes, the big fancy elements of my army of the Lost Sylvan Knights, which again, Lost Sylvan Knights can really catch people off guard. If they're not prepared and they don't have good ample magic damage, especially like direct magic damage like Spirit Leeches or Flaming Sword of Ruin, man, they can be really disruptive. And I had enough money for some Hawk Riders, so why the hell not? Now for my opponent's army, Cries for you here. He's got a couple Chaos Warhounds, he's got Horsemen, a massive core of Forsaken and Marauders with Sigvald, a Burning Head Caster, as well as a Death Caster. So actually pretty well prepared for my Sylvan Knights. 2 Chariots and more Hounds. Honestly, a very, very solid army. I would say this is a pretty good competitive force here. So let's see how this goes. Now, fighting over here in the bushes in the natural habitat of the Lost Sylvan Knights is going to be my giant Great Stags. And they do get the jump on the Houndos. The Houndos were moving through the forest here, probably to flank my force, but little did they know the Lost Sylvan Knights were waiting in ambush. A good response though, he does overcast a Spirit Leech from downtown, and you can see how much damage that does in conjunction with a little bit of Hound nibbling on them, but still that's pretty cost effective. Of course, I still think I came out ahead. I got the Winds of Magic out of my opponent, and we were able to really punish the Chaos Warhounds and other advancing units. Now the main Chaos host pushing up, looks like a combination of Marauders, Forsaken, as well as the Mirror Guard. Forsaken are kind of a cool unit. I really hope they can make a bit of a comeback. I think they're really, really neat in a couple matchups. When they do get the charge on lightly armored troops, they can do a ton of work. And especially against like factions like Empire, I find they do pretty well. Against Dryads, they should have a pretty solid performance. They hit very hard. I mean, look at their weapon strength right now, 66. Absolute insanity. So Chaos screaming forward, and the one thing about my army is, yes, I could engage Chaos head-on with the quality of my infantry, but really with the Wood Elves, I'm getting value with my cavalry, right? The Wild Riders on the flanks are unfortunately taking some damage against Forsaken, but for the most part, we have been able to catch the Hounds back here with my 2 Glade Riders. The Hawk Riders are still, causing some interference, and the Great Stag Knights here are disrupting a lot of my opponent's army. So basically, the idea is that I don't want to engage until we can get as much cavalry value as I feel like I can feasibly get. Unfortunately, my opponent here going to be pushing the tempo. He does pull the Chariots in, and 1 unit of Dryads is going to be massacred pretty bad, and he continues to get the Chariots into the Bladesingers, which not a whole lot I could do about that. So very well played by my opponent there. The Bladesingers do take some really, really nice charge. But I am going to be coming in here as well with Lost Sylvan Knights, who are regrowth, and this is a good opportunity because I do have Azrai Spears back here, and the Sylvan Knights might be able to actually trap a lot of these Chaos Chariots against the trees and some of these other assets, and a really, really good Burning Head as well. My opponent really on point with some of these initial engagements, and the Burning Head here, of course, really devastating damage against my expensive infantry. But, putting the pedal to the metal here, getting the Wild Riders as well as the Sylvan Knights to heavily pursue the Chaos Chariots, while Dryads in the front have a bit of a wet noodle contest with the Chaos Marauders. They should barely win that fight. Although these are the Malevolent Dryads, which are a summon, so Drika was able to drop that summon. Now, Sigvald, wanting an honorable duel, is going to be trying to chase down Drika, but she's got her, those, exercise bands you put around your ankles, and then, when you try and, do side steps, it, works your IT bands or something. I don't really know, but you can see Drika has that, haggard animation where it looks like her feet are tied together. But nonetheless, Drika is going to be pulling back. I'm just trying to take the favorable engagements where I can. Here we have the Mirror Guard, which are battling against my Bladesingers and Dryads, and this should be an okay fight for me. These are the ones that got Burning Headed, so a little bit lower overall, but the Hawk Riders will also be swooping in the back. Something a lot of people don't know about Hop Riders is they actually have exceptional armor piercing in melee, so the rear charge should get me some incremental value there. Malevolent Dryads and Glade Riders trying to clean up with the cannon in the back, and here I'm just maneuvering away, getting my Lost Sylvan Knights, my War Dancers, the Bladesingers, just trying to, find some picks where I can. In the meantime, the Hounds do come back, and the Glade Riders with Spears are able to jump on top of the Hounds, and they hammer those doggos down. But the doggos will return, perhaps in greater numbers. We'll find out. So here comes some Forsaken. Forsaken are pretty weak against cavalry charges. Their counter charge against cavalry isn't terrible, especially in the current state of the game. But overall, it's a nice little run right there. And the Forsaken do get hammered. They have a low model count and also not a lot of HP overall. So that charge was pretty cost effective. We really punished a fairly hard-hitting unit that before the charge was healthy. And the main thing is just not to give Sigvald the combat, right? If Sigvald's able to get in there and butter the bread as he pleases, I'm probably going to be losing this fight pretty badly, right? Like, Dryke against Sigvald is not a good fight. Dryke lacks armor piercing. Her stats aren't as good as Sigvald's. He regenerates. He's got armor. She has the advantage, of course, of being, relatively cheap and having summons, but in this case, Sigvald is going to be the big boss hog here. Now, on this side, the Bladesinger is still grinding pretty well. Mirror Guard are finally getting worn down. We pull some Wild Riders over here as well, and these angry reindeer going to be trying to deal with Slaaneish's chosen warriors. Hopefully, they'll be able to grind them to dust, but we will see in the next episode. Back over here, another Burning Head coming in. Thankfully, I was just barely able to dodge that. It did go after my War Dancer Azrai Spears, and pretty good hounding pursuit here from Chaos. They have the Marauder Horsemen behind their infantry that are pursuing, getting nice kills as I do try and run away here. So it's getting rather close to the point where I probably will want to engage here. Now, rather than throwing my Bladesingers into combat, I send in the Azrai Spears. Azrai Spears will be able to cut apart the Horsemen, and they have good enough combat stats to hold back other threats. I know the Bladesingers are a more powerful unit overall, so I'm just trying to salvage them, pull all the way into a big loop-de-loop, get up and around the old rope and dope, get here and unify with the rest of my forces. Now, we are able to win this engagement over here by luring the Chaos Army away from this. We get the Mirror Guard. Mirror Guard are going to be run down by the Lost Sylvan Knights. These Forsaken probably will be able to finish off the Bladesingers, but not before they held pretty well over here, honestly, and did a decent little job for the Azrai. And here are the Spears. Azrai Spears able to do a lot of damage against the cavalry, also able to defeat the Forsaken, which were very tattered in the pursuit. And now the Bladesingers are going to have to fight in a second. I do have 57 models, but the Horsemen are just heavily on my tail here, and it's only a matter of time. So we do turn around and fight. The Bladesingers going to be jumping in and getting the surprise attack on some of the cavalry units, which we're pursuing. And now the Bladesingers, I believe, piling in to fight against the Marauders. I can't quite remember if I gave them an attack order elsewhere. But Sigvald's also almost able to catch my character here. And the Balance Power has been in my favor for a hot moment, but it's been a back and forth game for sure. It kept kind of creeping back towards the middle as my opponent was able to catch several of my units. Unfortunately, my caster is surrounded. Sigvald and the Chaos characters are going to jump in and maybe be able to get that character down. Thankfully, I do get an Earthblend off, and you can see the Bladesingers are racking up quite a few kills against Marauders. And the Azrai Spears, an excellent performance. They do have a ton of armor piercing and really high melee defense, so they traded pretty well with those Forsaken. And now the cavalry have come. The Rohirrim have come back to the aid of King Thed and Helm's Deep, and they shall be able to slam into these forces and really punish the Chaos Corps. Here comes Lost Sylvan Knights, going to be getting a big one. A nice terror route. That is something that makes them a really valuable addition. Marauders, of course, and Marauder Horsemen and Hounds, all of them are very susceptible to terror routes. Having a big mobile terror-causing unit here in this matchup has proven to be very good. And even though he was prepared for it, the Spirit Leeches have been effective. It wasn't enough to just make them useless, right? So we hammer in here. Now we have the two characters isolated. We have the Chaos Sorcerer of Death here, as well as the Sorcerer of Fire. Chaos characters are pretty tanky, though. 100 armor on these casters, so they're going to be quite meaty to bring down. So the Bladesingers are going to be bouncing over, ignoring Sigvald, and hopefully the Bladesingers plus Dryka cycle charging will get the job done. Dryka is faster than Sigvald, just barely. She's got 43 speed with those exercise bands, and Sigvald is rocking 40. So we do have a little bit of an advantage. If we micro correctly, Sigvald should not be able to get the proper engagements. And here comes the Sylvan Knights. Dogs trying to come back in, but these Sylvan Knights do hit very hard on the charge, and they should be able to melt that. Yeah, look at the damage. That Chaos Sorcerer took a ton, and the other one also gets broken. So anything that breaks away from the main Chaos host here is going to get hunted down by the Glade Riders with Spears, of course. That's one of the main reasons why they're such a good, cost-effective unit. So the Hounds are broken. Chaos doesn't really have much left. They have a couple Horsemen who've just rallied, some Horsemen right here. But for the most part, it's going to be the Sigvald show, and this is how a lot of replays with Sigvald end. You save him for last because going in and trying to kill Sigvald during the heat of battle, unless you really know you can do it, is typically a very terrible idea. So Chaos Sorcerer breaks, and now at this point it's more or less just a cycle charge circus, so we'll do a little bit of fast forwarding as the Bladesingers grind down Sigvald. More of them pile in. He's still tanking it like an absolute champion, but just making sure to try and finish these Chaos characters so we can get the juicy army losses there. So that character is almost done. Dryka just kind of running away while the Azrai Spears continue to poke. Classic Sigvald, and now the Sylvan Knights are coming in. So Sylvan Knights I didn't expect them to do this much damage, but they do charge in here. They lower those horns and instantly do like 1,000 damage to Sigvald on the charge. It was brutal. Sylvan Knights MVPs, baby. So GG, well played to my opponent. It was a good scrappy game for sure. I think a lot of it came down to the hounds in the beginning. We were able to get optimal trades against his hound units. Like, I think all 4 of them fought in pretty suboptimal fights. Aside from that, he had pretty great micro on all his other units. It was just the doggos in the beginning and mid game that we were able to shut down, and I think that was a big variable for sure. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. 2,800 value in Sylvan Knights. The Bladesingers did okay. 1,764. They were mobile. They were able to hold and fight, and yeah, I was relatively happy with their performance. But really, these Sylvan Knights were just huge beast mode players here in this battle. 2,800, and your boy Sigvald, of course, got 11 Firecaster. Did some, and of course the Deathcaster with its constant Spirit Leeches was able to accrue over 2,000. God damn. And some of the Forsaken and Mirror Guard traded very well, and those damn Chariots were pretty scary. And yeah, like if the Chariots had survived that initial gooning, I think he probably would have won the game too. The Chariots, the fact that we were able to get them with the Cavalry really saved us and allowed us to be mobile and like pick our fights, but if those things had lived and pulled back, it could have been a whole different game. So anyways, well played. To Cry is free. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this one between Drycha, the Bladesingers, and the Sylvan Knights and the Warriors of Chaos. Pretty fun little build though there. Give it a try. Let me know your thoughts, and we'll see you guys next time. Take care of yourselves.